I think I write because I am compelled to, and I don't necessarily want to share it with others, but I found it's beneficial in the process and it makes sense.
Mhm.
Um, I kept journals as a child, and I was always a like fastidious note taker. I do remember when I wrote my very first book as a child, one of those school assignments, a really flimsy little book. It was very simple. But even just that small creativity as a child gave me encouragement to know that I wanted to write a book someday. Um, Back in the day of MySpace, I actually had a Zanga page,
Mhm.
and that was just like an online diary. Um, at one point, I did decide that my writing was dumb and that I could not do it. I was like, this is stupid. Who writes books? What do you have to say, Alicia? Like this, no, you can't. And I did burn all my old like childhood journals. I'm definitely melodramatic. I was like, it's garbage. I don't want anyone to ever see this. But I think that might have been after my first assault too. And so at that point, I was just like trying to comply and just like be the right, whatever my version of the right person was, I guess, at
Mhm.
that time. But right now, I'm disseminating my book. I have finished my first novel and I'm distributing it almost in its entirety on my blog, chapter by chapter. I'm not including the first chapter or the last chapter or a few like juicy tidbits for my own pleasure because I don't want everybody to view it all on the blog.
So, with all that, what is your novel about? Is it really just the chapter of your life, or is it something completely different?
The book is about a girl named Mildred. It's called The Fool, Not
Mhm.
About Love. I can read you the prologue if you're interested.
Of course.
Um, I'll read you the back cover, I guess, first. It's the first in a three-book series from Mildred Stories. It's a tale of a girl with too many concussions, bumbling through the world, who became a woman while on the run from herself. Whom does she search for? Well, her big love story, of course. She was overcome by rhythm and note. Mildred caught herself humming along to a tune she hadn't intended to linger alongside. She settled for the bits she gleaned from others, naming that love. What does a woman do when merely nothing happens to her? Do the shining glimmers we get from others count? If we add them all together, do the fragments equate to love in their entirety? Is love enough? Does it matter even? Mildred's story was never about love.
Mm. I like that. I like that. That gives me like so much inquiries about Mildred
Good.
and about like that concept of love as a whole as well. So it's
Right.
really, really good. So, what made you want to write a story or write a book?
Um, I I knew that after the first time I was assaulted that I would write a book about it. I was only 19 at the time, and it took me a long time to even just like function past that, let alone be able to like verbalize it and then write it down. So it's been a very long journey. But I thought I was writing this novel for me to heal, or I guess I thought I was writing this novel for my son initially to um, like explain how he came to be, sort of. But it turned into a novel for me and a novel for healing, and it's been so powerful for myself to look back at where I've come because it is a fictional novel, but it is mostly based upon true events.
Mhm. Well, I was actually going to ask you that question was, is this your way of healing of because you mentioned twice the assault. I'm not going to get into details of that now, but later on. But it's more of a lot of people find that outlet, and you really turned, I guess, a victim into a survivor, which I'm very proud of you because it takes a lot of courage to do that. and to have an outlet on throwing all your ideas, throwing all everything you've experienced into a book based around the concept of love, because it's, I have not been assaulted, but being an assault victim yourself, you could really attest to it, saying once that happens, who do you trust when people say so and so forth? Oh, yes, I love you. Or what is love? Is this really love? Can I be loved after something like this has happened to me? So hopefully your book dives into that.
Yes, and you bring up a good topic that my book covers specifically, which is, I think, purity culture and how detrimental that can be to people in general, specifically young women, because I think it's pressing upon them the most. And I think that would be who my book is for. You know, it's for like 13-year-old me, and it's a little warning about all the things not to do. Um,
Mm.
and you know, yeah, what is love? You know, anyways, we all, even if you're not an assault victim, you uh, struggle with that. And for a long time, I did have a victim mentality, and this book is part of me changing that narrative for myself, to a survivor narrative. And I think words are so powerful, and
Mm.
it's so important to be intentional about how we speak about ourselves, how we speak about our friends, how we speak about everyone, because what we're saying, we're enacting into our lives, whether we realize it or not. So,
I like that. I really do like that. So with that being said, do you find peace when you're writing or even reading back on things that you wrote, either in the past or like ideas that you write down?
yeah, it's very validating for me. I think I once I learned what gaslighting was, I was like, oh, I think I'm gaslighting myself. And
Mm.
I think I talk myself out of things, or I invalidate myself a lot, or I let other people's, you know, narrative to get in my brain. I let it do so to me. But either way, um, you know, sorry, I lost my train of thought there.
That's okay.
Who um sorry, ask me, can you ask me again? Oh no, I remember. Okay.
It's okay.
Yes.
Yep.
Because so there are parts in the book that were very hard for me to write about. And I think that's where I was, where I had like the whole entire book done except for this one section. And I knew what it was gonna be, and I knew what it was gonna have to be to go through it. So that part for me hasn't been really, I don't think that's cathartic. I don't think that like CBT therapy works for everyone,
Mhm.
um, or like re-immersion therapy. Um, but the actual process of like retelling my story to myself has helped me so imperatively, because I think I didn't touch certain parts of my life in my head. Like I was just
Mhm.
like, that, we're not gonna, we're gonna put that away. And I thought that was keeping me safe. And for a while, I think it did. But ultimately, I had to acknowledge those parts about myself to heal. And so, and also, once I looked in there, I was like, you know, it's kind of cruddy, but it's not that bad. So it was very, if that was relieving for me. It was like, you know, it sometimes I think we, or I tend to exacerbate a problem simply by avoiding it. So,
Gotcha. Gotcha. Yeah. Makes sense. It makes sense. Sometimes you like I'm trying to put myself in your shoes. And I say that because I guess there's times when you're writing it, you kind of said, huh, did I really let myself, and it's sad to say this, like let myself get into the situation? Or did this really happen to me?
right.
And I think that's the hardest part, because I believe that we go through life and you're like, yeah, like I know I'm living a good life, whatever it is. And you know, like throughout life you overcome a lot of traumatic experience and so on and so forth. But then when you become an assault victim, um, And then when you actually write it down, you're just like, why wasn't I? You start blaming yourself a little bit, as in, why wasn't I strong enough to get away from it? Why wasn't I strong enough to speak up about it? Why did I let it continue in some cases without doing anything? So hopefully, again, your book touched base on that aspect of things, and it really looks at not looking as a person as a victim, but really, one, acknowledging that it did happen, and two, finding the resources or finding the strength to become a survivor and overcomer in that aspect of things. Just a thought.
Yeah, I know. And I like to say survivor, and like I hate I hate the word like victim, but like it's just like an easy word to end up using in this scenario.
Mhm. What's the hardest part of writing have you found so far?
I don't like to say that any part of writing is hard. I like to say that it's all joyful.
Mhm.
I'm just, I have, I think the hardest part about writing is having this whole big fucking story in my head, you know, and I've got it, man. I've got it. Ooh, it's all floating up there. And I get like agitated, literally trying to get it out. And then like frustrated with myself that I'm not like getting it out right, or that I'm not getting my words across the
Mhm.
way that I intend to. But that's the joy of like, you know, re-examining what you wrote and doing it again and be like, no, no, that's not what I meant. Like say it this way. Say it how you meant it, you know.
Mhm.
So
Which I'm glad you said that, because my first thought was when you said just trying to use the right words on the paper. One, you really have to look at your audience, and at the same time, look for the words that fit your audience, because you can't, if it's geared to someone that's like 13 to like, I guess, preteens, I guess, there's certain words you kind of want to omit. And that's what I was going to ask you. Do you have like a dictionary or the thesaurus like beside you when you're looking at things like, hey, let's find an easier way or simpler word to have people relate to, or you just keep it raw?
I did actually have one section where I'm talking about transgender persons,
Mhm.
and since I am kind of, you know, it's based on true events, I had a point where I was struggling with, do I write what actually occurred? Do I change what was said? Do I make it more, appealing to audiences? And what I ended up doing was just going to the internet and being like, what is the right way to say this?
Mhm.
And I just kind of went there and I was like, you know what, I'm just going to say this the right way. I'm not going to say it how it happened. And yeah, I definitely have a thesaurus and a dictionary, and I'm trying to go through. I know there's certain words that I overuse, and I'm like, okay, we need to find a synonym for that, baby. We can't keep using that one.
Yeah, like my writing skills are like really, really bad, like so bad. And I tried, as we mentioned earlier, I tried writing the book mid last year, and it was just like, yeah, this makes sense. Let's throw this out there. I think everyone would love to read my thoughts, or read what I have to say. And it really is. And then you look at it and you realize that there's so much people that have something similar to you, or the similar thoughts or similar experience that you've gone through. Go ahead.
Okay, so then because I find myself stuck in that same mentality too when I
Mhm.
create. I'm like, well, what am I doing? It's not special. It's not original. Someone already did that, you know? And Elizabeth Gilbert, I love her. She wrote Eat, Pray, Love. She did a whole TED talk on this subject, but also I read her book about it. It's called Big Magic. And I like to just kind of peruse it. I usually use that when I'm feeling like stalled out in my writing. And I just kind of will just like read that before I go to bed, and it kind of gives me an influx of creativity. I find her to be inspiring. But she says, you know, stop worrying about whether you're original or whether you're doing it how, you know, did somebody else do it this way or someone else already said that. You know, look how many times Romeo and Juliet has been redone, for crying out loud. Cinderella, all that stuff has been done 100 times. And to be truthful, nothing is really new. You know, I'm not really saying anything that someone hasn't heard before, but I'm saying it in my voice, with my style, with my rhythm, and anything that you write would be the same way. And that's like we all have a story to tell. We all have our own voice, and everyone is so unique and valid. And writing is a muscle, and your first attempts are bound to be,
Painful.
painful. Exactly. It's like the first time you go to the gym and you hate it and you barf or whatever, and then you kind of keep going until you get yourself into the habit. And that's just how writing is. You just say, I'm gonna do 5 minutes every day. And like, this is stupid. Then you do 10 minutes every day. Like, this is still stupid. And then you start getting into a good groove and it becomes like anything.
Yeah, you're absolutely right on that. Honestly, I used to be an avid reader for the longest time in my life. And I stopped reading. I don't know why I really stopped. I think I just decided I'd rather spend my time doing other things. And just recently I just got back into it. I'm just like, this is like I'm struggling to go to like finish the page. But it's that if one, you have to find something that interests you.
Totally.
And talking about writing, throw into it like books. For the longest time, everyone's like Tom Clancy, his books are amazing, so on and so forth. It took me, I think, almost 7 years to finish one book from Tom Clancy.
Hey,
And
okay.
yeah, it was a struggle for me. And it's the fact that just because an author can be great and everyone says they're great, if you have no interest in that subject at all, it's very hard to continue that book. And that's why it took me so long. I literally, I remember down in Miami, I was reading the book on the plane and like, I started falling asleep. I'm like, okay, let me put this down. And when I had surgery last year, I dedicated at least like 4 days. I'm just like, I'm going to finish this book. I do not care. And I struggled through it. I'm not a big fan of war and all this other stuff. And that's mainly what like that book I was reading about. But then I love old school detective 1960s to 1980s, that era, that Dick Tracy era with like the long trench coat and the hat. And like, I could like, and you have like the private eye room and there's like cigarettes and smokes and he goes and you hear like the jazz and all that stuff like that.
Yeah.
Give me one of those books, I'll read it like 50 times. I love it.
Hell yeah. See, that's your style.
Exactly. And it's funny, like I love it. I love it. I love the details of it because as soon as I read it, I picture myself. I can literally feel myself in that era. I pick up a Tom Clancy book, I'm just like, I can't do this.
Yeah. It doesn't take you anywhere. That's
No,
okay.
it doesn't. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, art is totally subjective. That's why it's hard, like when you're editing a novel to like get people to read it and people are like, I'm sorry. I'm like, it's fine. Like
Mhm.
everyone's busy. Also, like it just might not be your style. And that's like, I'm not taking that personal. Like.
Mhm. Have anyone read your blog, if I'm not mistaken, and like how do you deal with criticism, or have you ever received any criticism in regards to your writing as of yet?
I haven't received that much criticism because I don't share my writing a lot.
Oh,
I've been hoarding my writing essentially, and so this is my foray into dispersal.
okay.
Um, I've had the blog up for about a year now. So, my best friend, we've been friends since we were like children. I love her dearly. She did tell me because as I was like trying to frame, I kind of was just kind of putting stuff on the blog, and I was helping me outline the book, and I was like sending her. I don't send everybody stuff, but I was just kind of sending her things, and she's like, "Okay, don't take this the wrong way, but like it, I don't know." And I was like, "It's not done." Um, I I think I always want to be open to whatever anyone says, though, like especially negative feedback because they're my reader. So I always listen. So I'm looking forward to more negative reviews so that I can polish up my book before I print it.
So that's my only concern, and I'm glad you raised that up. One, if you receive a lot of negative reviews, and then you mentioned you want to polish it, at the same time, would it lose its authentic key?
Authenticity?
Yes.
No. I mean,
Are
I
you
don't think
sure?
so because I'm kind I'm kind of that way. I'm kind of bullheaded and I'm really not into doing what people tell me. So I don't think that anyone's criticism would change what I'm doing.
Good.
I think more so I'm kind of letting people in to what I'm doing while I do it. I'm not necessarily putting my book out there for people's help in printing it. I'm putting it out there so my sad mom brain can like organize it all and I can be like, oh yeah, that does, because even as I'm making the blog posts, you know, what I previously had segmented as, you know, 1 to 2 chapters, I'm like, oh, you know, actually that's perfectly fine for 1 chapter, or, you know, hey, this actually needs to be spaced out a little differently. And so that's what I'm looking for, because I think that's essential to the reading um, experience. Is how you, like, you have a great story, but if you don't break up your chapters right, if you don't give the reader time to sit with what you're saying, it could just ruin it.
Mm. I
I
would
think.
love to like write a 500-page book and just have like one chapter.
I well, that's kind of what I did to my friend. It wasn't 500 pages. It's about like 250 pages, and I was just
Mm.
like, when I first like finished it, and I was like, "Here you go." He's like, he's like, "Well, I couldn't stop reading it." Yeah, so that's good. But the reason I think he couldn't stop reading it is because there were no chapters. So,
That's
oops.
awesome. That's all I want. Just I want to build one book, no chapters whatsoever. Just it's I should name it like the chapterless book. That'd
Yeah,
be like the perfect
do
title.
it. See?
Yeah.
Yes. And people are like, "What is this?" I'm like, "I don't know. Just read it, find out. You can't
There you
stop."
go.
Can't stop.
Saying that, do you read like books yourself, like quite often? And do you get ideas of how the author is portraying different, I guess, storylines or different part of a book? And would you try and adapt that in your stories, or do you just leave it the way it is?
I don't ever like take other writers' stuff and put it into mine. My all my writing is me.
Mhm.
I did like when I was like, all right, taking myself real serious, like I'm a raw book a few years back, I was just started really like, because that's what someone had told me was like, you need to find your voice. And I was like, what the fuck does that mean? You know, I don't know. So I just started reading authors that I enjoyed, and I would be like, okay, I really like his voice, and I'm gonna just read like everything he wrote and just like and see, because it's interesting if you read a writer enough, you can kind of you can hear the congruency in how they speak. And I think that's important for consistency as readers. If they're going to keep coming back and reading your book, they want to feel like they're, you know, getting a similar experience.
Mhm.
Um, Also, too, I did read books about, I guess, similar experiences to kind of see how other people had spoken about situations, just to give myself a little bit of like for example, Dark Objects by Gillian Flynn. I read that. I love it's a dark book,
Mhm.
but that like sometimes you need to read a nice dark book to give you a little bit of context.
That's
Yes.
true. Yep. Yep. I agree with you on that one. So it's nice to, I guess, venture to different subjects and vary between like a nice light novel and then just go dark and then just, you know what, a little medium will be fine. It's
Yeah.
nice to mix it up every now and then.
Yeah. I'm usually reading about 5 books at any one time.
Wow.
But like not all like all of them at the same time. And I was gonna say,
Okay.
'cause you said you get bored sometimes. I have a very strict policy, like, because, you know, I think it's a mood thing. Like sometimes I just don't feel like reading a certain book, and I'll just be like, no, goodbye. And I'll just, you know, pick up another book. So I'm not always reading like 5 books in like what's the word I'm looking for?
Altogether.
Altogether? Yeah, I
Make it
guess.
simple.
But yeah.
Or
Um
in tandem.
yeah, in tandem. That's the
There
word.
you
I was like,
go.
no, I was like, what's the word? In tandem. Thank you. Correct. That's the word. Um
You mentioned a few, I guess, of your favorite authors. What's your favorite book and who's your favorite author?
oh yeah, I could tell you that, right? So this is my favorite book. And this
Okay.
is my favorite author. Like, I don't like to have a lot of favorites, so I just like pick. This is like nothing beats this. So this has stuck for quite some time. And I have this is. I haven't had the time to read this. Look how big this is. Oh, I
That's
can't
massive.
wait. I started it, but I just like don't have quite the time to dedicate to that. That's my friend Laura. That's in my book.
Oh, nice. Nice.
um, yeah. I'm gonna Hanya Yanagihara.
Mhm.
Very
Is that like a series or just are they very separate?
no, no, they're
Mhm.
not a series. Just separate. Look how big. But like I think I got into this author because I want to write books like this. I want to
Mhm.
write big books, and I don't think my first one is going to maybe be that big, but something to aspire to for sure. So,
Make it ever so simple. Small book, small font, good to go.
yeah, yeah, there you go. Exactly.
Yeah. It's like when people say like, oh, you got to write like 1,000 words, or like you have to write 1,000 page essay. Perfect, double space everything. Cheesy.
See, I was the opposite person. I always put too many words, and my English teacher would be like, Alicia, take out half of these. What is this? And it wasn't because I was trying to make it longer. I'm just that guy. I just add. She's like, it's superfluous. You don't need all that word. You don't need those words. I'm like, oh, okay, fine. My English teacher hated me, but that's okay because I'm still gonna print my book.
There you go.
So this is
Show
for
up.
all those kids that, you don't need to be encouraged by anyone in high school. You're cool.
Any closing comments or words in regards to being an author?
Um, I I guess I just wanted. Oh, what?
I just thought of something, and I just thought
Okay,
about just now. And maybe clarify this.
okay.
When does a writer become an author, or when does an author become a writer?
Because someone told me, I don't know. I think I'm not going to call myself an author until I print the book for sure. I
Ah,
just call myself a writer for now.
gotcha. Okay, okay, that works.
But I guess I wanted to just close with maybe why I'm out here putting my mug on the internet, even anyways. And thank you for having this podcast. I really like that you were in your home, you had surgery, and you're just trying to like occupy your mind in a positive place. And I think that's so great. And people need to have a space to just talk unfiltered. So, thank you.
You're
And
welcome.
I'm trying to I want to do that same thing. I think there has been people along my journey that have encouraged me, and I want to encourage others. And whatever your creative endeavor is, it doesn't have to make you money. You don't have to be the best, and you just have to like doing it. I don't, just create for the joy of creating.